Um, Something else that I wanted to ask is, you know, you obviously mentioned that there's many people who are in the IT space. What makes you and your company stand out from, you know, all of the other IT companies out there?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We certainly always try to distinguish ourselves from the rest of the crowd, right? And I would extend this. Well, I mean, I'll answer it for what we do here at Progressive Computing that I think helps us stand out. Uh, but I think anybody, almost in any business, service or not, really um, struggles with the same thing, right? And you can apply this to a pizzeria, right, or a
Of
or a
course.
coffee shop. Why is my coffee shop better than the next, or better than Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks? You got to dig deep and find that. And I think for every business, it starts with your core. You know,
Hmm.
what makes you you? What makes your company your company? And I think the way you define that is by defining your culture.
For sure.
And Peter Drucker is famous for saying that culture eats strategy, or beats strategy, or eats strategy for breakfast. I'm probably
Yeah.
chewing that one up a little bit. But the point is that culture is more important than strategy. It's not to say that strategy isn't important. And for us, we've used a business system here called EOS for
Yep.
about the last 10 years. And that helped us. I'm not saying that it's the only thing or that it's the best thing, but it was a very important, pivotal change when we implemented it, because it helped us to codify and really put on paper what is our culture and what
Mm.
are our core values and what sort of core behaviors drive us. And so for me, one of the distinguishing things about any service business is both the culture and the people who are inside that company. Um,
Yes.
every IT company has the same tool sets, is exposed to the same technologies. I don't have any tools or software that are any more special than any other provider. And guess what? They
Right.
don't have that edge on me either. What it really comes down to are your business processes, the culture behind it, how you approach goods customer service. You can't just say, "Oh, we provide great customer service." um it's how you deliver it. It's the feeling, it's the experience, right? Was it Maya Angelou who said, people won't remember what you've done for them, but they will remember you
How
for
you
how
made
you
them
made
feel.
them feel, right? And
Yes.
again, that's probably a 97% accuracy on her words. I don't know, we'll ask AI how close I was. My point is, again, and I know this may sound strange to some people out there. This techno geek Robert over here running a technology company is talking about feelings and psychology and emotions and the human side of it. That's what makes us different, is our
Mm.
ability to connect with people. Uh, but you have to back that up with technological experience, like here, to be technologically experienced, to have that authority, to have the business chops to go along with it. There's a lot
Mm.
of different facets here. Listen, I know a lot of guys in this industry, especially and I'm not knocking the smaller guys, but some, one man band kind of guys, independent guys, they're brilliant. They're absolutely brilliant. They can run technical circles around me. Maybe not my team, but certainly around me, but they don't have a
Hmm.
business bone in their body, right?
Mm.
So highly employable, but
For
not
sure.
necessarily the best person to drive the best business value to somebody. And listen, I wish them well. They do well. I try to support them. If you're nice to me, I'm going to be nice back.
For
Um,
sure.
but those are the differentiators. You got to look in the mirror and determine what makes your company special. And it really starts at the top. My business partner is way better at this than I am. He's always been way focused on the human side of things and the cultural side of things, and has taught me to think and act in that way too.
Super important. Reminds me of the E Myth, which I would recommend to anyone who owns a business
Absolutely.
because, it makes you reflect as to, whether you are the manager, the technician, or the salesperson,
Yep.
because you can't wear all three hats if you want to have an
Yeah.
effective sort of a business. You can have a business, it just might not be very effective
Well, it's
though.
interesting you say that because, when we're small, especially in the service business, you are all three of those things. And
100%.
the hardest thing, one of the hardest things that I've run into over the years is hitting that point where I have to say, wait a minute, I'm not the technician anymore, right? I need to
Mm,
be a manager, or I need to be a sales guy, or I have to delegate that. I have to let that go. I have to let my other technicians be better technicians than I am. Right? Those are hard things to do. Um, I think in any business, right? Whether you're providing financial services or accounting services or marketing services or whatever it is that you're providing, that when recognizing and awareness that you hit a point where you say, okay, it's time to let go and do the next thing, right?
mm, super important, super important. And it's so good to have that self-awareness too. It's, it could take you very, very far in business.
Well, that's also
Really,
where
really
a coach
appreciate
or
that.
a mentor can help you recognize where your blind spots are.
100%, 100%. Very well said. Um, yeah, that was some awesome insight, Robert. My my other question, but I have a hunch that I know the answer
Okay.
already.
Yeah, but
If
the audience may not know, so don't be so selfish.
You're right. You're right. Um, so if you were not in the IT space,
Oh boy.
what would you be doing instead?
Well, I often joke that one day I want to be a coffee barista, not own a coffee shop, just make coffee for other people, just because, especially at a beach setting, it just seems like the lifestyle that I would really enjoy. Just happy people having their morning coffee by the beach, and
For
by 10
sure.
o'clock, I'm done. Um, you know, um, I've thought about this a lot. I have such an affinity for this business that I've I think that I will always be in this business in some capacity, one shape or another.
Definitely.
I love it. I love I love running a business. I love being in business. I love strategy. I love technology. I mean, there's just so much opportunity because this business changes so fast. But if I had to be in an alternate universe, part of me would love to be some sort of creative writer. I think I
Really?
have creative writing capability. In fact, I know it. I don't think it. That's been validated by a lot of people. I would love to be a sci-fi or fantasy novelist. If someone could write me a big fat check today, not that I've had offers, but I've said no. I don't plan on getting out of the business, but if I should do that, let's just pretend that I should take a big fat check and I wouldn't have to work a day in my life again. I'd probably do that. It just seems like a lot of fun.
That's super, super interesting. Well, you do have a lot of um, creativeness, and that's super evident by what you post on LinkedIn because you're super consistent with it, and it's always
Appreciate
thought provoking. Absolutely, and it gets a lot of engagement. So
that.
you have a ton of validation.
Well, it comes from
Um,
two places. It comes from here and it comes also from here. I just, the things I write about on LinkedIn are just, they're things that I just genuinely either think about or feel. Like I don't premeditate that stuff. It's like
mhm,
something happens to me during the week. I'm like, oh, this is an awesome LinkedIn article. Let me talk about
definitely.
how I messed up.
Yeah, no, that's super awesome, and it's really good to have that humility as well, being able to admit when you've messed up as well. It's
Yeah.
super important. Since you mentioned sci-fi,
Mm.
are you do you prefer Star Wars or do you prefer Star Trek or
So what you probably
neither?
can't see is I got a Andy Warhol version of Spock with "Live Long and Prosper," a poster right here. In the corner is Gandalf fighting the Balrog, and then there's another one off to the side here of King Leonidas and um, at the Battle of Thermopylae, Spartan king. So I am a Star Trek fanatic since I
Oh,
was a young kid, watching
wow.
memorizing every original series episode. So if there's ever a trivia contest where it's based on original Star Trek, you will lose.
That's so awesome. That is so cool. I love that. It's really cool to be passionate about, something outside of what you do.
Yeah.
I love the James Bond film franchise
Oh yeah,
personally. I find it,
that's awesome stuff too.
yeah, super, super fascinating. Yeah, that's really, really cool stuff. Um, a question outside of IT: what is something that nobody knows about you?
Huh. Um, I don't know if nobody knows about me. I mean, my friends and family know about me. I'll answer that question maybe more in a business setting, even though some people.
Sure.
I love gardening. So I
Really?
grow killer tomatoes. Not the movie Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, if anyone, but my record is a 2.5 pound tomato. It was about the size of a cantaloupe. Um,
Wow.
so yeah, these things, my friend said they're not tomato plants, they're tomato trees because they grow like 7, 8 feet tall. But I
Wow.
love growing peppers, basil. I'm experimenting with Brussels sprouts, and I've never done eggplant, so I'm doing that this year. I've done zucchini in the past, watermelon. I've done all kinds of crazy stuff in my garden, but it's the tomatoes. I just really enjoy it. I get a big kick out of it. I spend way too much time and effort in protecting my garden from critters. So I guess I'm like Dan
Definitely.
Aykroyd from Caddyshack,
It's so funny.
out in my yard protecting my. But certainly I can go to the store and with a few bucks buy my entire harvest, without having put in all that sweat and labor into it. But it's a labor of love. It's just something I enjoy doing.
That is that is an amazing skill to have a green thumb. I am not very skilled in gardening quite yet.
Yep.
Um, I'd like to do it just because, just to be able to put in some effort on the front end and to see, vegetables
Hey,
and
you can
fruits
learn a
pop up. I think
lot
it's pretty
just by
awesome.
watching YouTube videos. There's a ton of
Yeah.
information. And listen, and I've learned a lot too. Like I've had problems. I've had bad years where I had tomato rot, which is basically the
Wow.
bottom of the tomatoes turned black, and I couldn't understand why. And I'm like pulling. I had such great harvests every year. Why suddenly are my tomatoes horrible? And it was a calcium deficiency. And then I had to learn about better soil management and soil composition. And I know it sounds complicated, but it's not if you're
Right.
just want to put a little effort into it. I see people all the time, I can tell instantly, hey, what's wrong with my plant? You're overwatering them. How do you know this? It's like you just pick it up over time. I could tell they're
Yeah,
totally overwatered, right? Or you're spraying the tomato leaves. Don't do that. That's why I get those black spots all over them. It's things like
interesting.
that you just pick up over time, right? Um, anyway, so that's probably one thing that not a lot of people know about.
That is so
My neighbors
awesome.
know a
When I'm in
lot. They see me all.
Yeah. When I'm in Westchester, I'll stop by even if I'm not invited because it sounds
You're
amazing,
invited.
but
Yes. Come on.
I love that, Robert.
Yeah.
Um, so going back to IT, we have a lot of people who are watching who are business owners. Who is your ideal customer, I
Mm,
guess, in terms of employee size or
yeah.
the industry? Do you have a niche, or is it kind of
Yeah. So there are
it's
some
you know
people in our industry that will focus on particular niches. We've decided not to do that. Although we do have some areas where we have some concentrations, but essentially any business that is roughly around 10 people, all the way up to about somewhere in the 100, range is an ideal customer for us,
okay,
simply because they've got a good amount of need. And it doesn't always make sense to hire an IT person. Now, the bigger they get, sometimes they have an IT director, but they're very
for
focused
sure.
on maybe some of the bigger stuff or going deep on line of business applications, software specific to their industry. Like we have a construction company. the IT director is very focused on their software and applications and enablement of like their project managers and field people, while we handle all of the security, the infrastructure, like everything else that's like outside of his realm of experience. So we complement each other very, very well. So it doesn't have to be a company that has no IT people, but generally someone who doesn't have necessarily the time or expertise on all of that other stuff. I mean, cybersecurity really became a huge differentiator over the last 6, 7 years. Um,
Mm.
um, so and again, someone in Westchester County or in the New York City metropolitan area really is ideal, but certainly we have customers that are as far away as San Jose, California.
Wow.
So it's not that we can't service a business using remote, using our remote services, supplemented by friends that we have all out throughout the country. And I have a friend that runs a shop in San Jose, so he helps us out whenever we need local hands. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. Anywhere really between 10 and let's say 100-ish, and that has some sort of
Nice.
need or is maybe not feeling like they're getting the best or most out of technology, especially from a strategic side.
Got it. Got it. Got it. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. Very good. Um, yeah, I think we're almost done, but a question that I did not pose that I'd like to ask. What is one piece of advice that you would like to leave the audience with?
Um, that's a good question. There's really so many different things that I can approach this
Of
from.
course.
But I'm going to be slightly selfish and maybe hone in on the types of services that we offer, and
Mm,
maybe focus in on an area where I see people make a lot of mistakes. And that is
okay.
thinking that you don't need to to go to the outside for help, that you've got it all
Mm,
covered internally. We have taken over accounts where there has been an internal person doing things, and and again, this is just the law of averages here. I'm just telling you what our
for
experience
sure.
is over many decades. Generally, those are the ones where we find have the most amount of problems, where we walk in
Got it.
someplace and on the surface, everything seems great, but it's not.
Mm,
And we're often thought of as a threat to that person's job, but it's the opposite is true. I mentioned that construction company earlier. They have an IT director, and we work
hmm.
with them. We make him look really good. And everybody knows, including the owners, that it's a partnership between us. We have our
Right.
strengths and areas of expertise, and he has his. And we've learned how to work it together. So a lot of people think, hey, I got somebody internally, they do it all. We're covered. We don't need any outside help. You don't know what you don't know, especially people who work in IT that tend to be just within their own company. The world changes so quickly that they often don't know what else is out there or things that they ought to be doing. So a conversation
Definitely.
is a great way to start that. Like, doing a free assessment. Like, let's just take a look. Let's just have a conversation. And
Yeah,
if it's not us, then find somebody else that you know, like, or trust that you go have that conversation with. But don't do it alone.
for sure. For sure. But ideally, they choose your company, obviously, Robert.
Well, if they were
But
smart, they would.
if they
If
were
they ask
smart, they would.
ChatGPT, ChatGPT will say, well, obviously, no, 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 I don't have that. I wish I had that ability. No, that wouldn't be fair. No, this wouldn't be ethical
That's
or
so
fair to do
funny.
that. No, I
So
mean,
funny.
listen, there's a lot of great companies out there. We believe we're one of the best. There's only one way
Mm,
to prove that or disprove it is to give us a shake. Uh,
yeah.
but there are, listen, I have a lot of peers all across the country, and there's a lot of smart, amazing people in this industry. There are unfortunately an equal amount, or if not slightly greater, people who, problem in our industry also is that there's no accreditation. Listen,
Oh,
Brandon, I
interesting.
like you a lot immensely, in fact, but you could print a business card tomorrow and consider yourself my competitor, and no one wouldn't be the wiser, right? There's no
Wow.
license to get into this business.
That is a little bit scary,
Yeah,
at
I
least
mean,
with being a real estate broker, a mortgage broker, you have to
listen,
have
I don't
a
mean to
license.
belittle. I don't mean to belittle my hairdresser, right? My hairdresser. That sounds a little funny. The girl who cuts my hair, she needs a license in New York State to cut hair.
Mm,
You
wow.
don't need a license in this country to practice IT. And if you think
It's
about
crazy.
the level of responsibility that we have and what happens if we do it poorly, what the ramifications are. If somebody snips my hair the wrong way, it'll grow back.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yep.
I never knew that. Wow. Well, you know what? Maybe we need to get a bill passed. Who knows?
Well, there is a movement in our industry to create
Oh,
an
nice.
SRO, a self-regulating organization. And I'm firmly behind that, to be able to create like a FINRA or an AMA or a CPA or a bar association, if you would, for the IT space, because I don't want the government regulating us. I'd rather self-regulate.
For sure. Absolutely. I think there needs to be a system of checks and balances to your point, Robert. You know, you're handling companies between 10 to 150 employees. And if you're an amateur and you have the data of 150 employees plus thousands and thousands of clients as well, it's pretty scary, like if something happens.
If you don't do things, if you don't adhere to or follow certain frameworks or standards, or do things poorly, then the results can be disastrous. And unfortunately, they're not going to be self-evident day one or even year one. It's, in year 3 or 4 or 5, when something bad happens, and then you realize your backups weren't working, you were never protected. Threat actors got in your systems and exfiltrated or copied data out of your systems. They're now selling it on the dark web. You're now in violation of compliance. I mean, I can go on and on and
Mm,
on, right? And even if you're not in a regulated business, your customers aren't happy with you because of your systems are down, or whatever the case may be. We've become so dependent upon technology these days that um, uh, it's amazing how some people still don't want to invest properly in technology when technology has become the heartbeat of all business. Not even, and I'm not even talking about small business, all business, right?
mm.
So why wouldn't you want to align yourself with people or other outsourced companies that really know what they're doing and have the experience to back that up?
So important. Very, very well said too. Yeah,
You be
you
the
should always
judge.
work. Yeah, you should always work with a seasoned expert. Lastly, where can people go to find you?
Sure. Great question. Thank you for that. You mentioned LinkedIn earlier. I love it. I just love that social media and business have collided in that way. So LinkedIn, Robert Chiaffi. You can just go to linkedin.com /IN for in, and then /RChiaffi, RCIOFFI. Progressivecomputing.com is our domain name. Or I'll just toss out my number. It's 914-375-3009. I'm at extension 212. So really, LinkedIn, email, robertc@progressivecomputing.com. Those are the easiest ways to get a hold of me.
Awesome, awesome, Robert. This has been uh, an awesome conversation. You've been um, an awesome person to speak with, and I appreciate you being the first person on my first live stream of many. Thank
All right.
you.
Well, I am honored, like I said earlier, and I appreciate you so much, Brandon. It was
Of
great
course.
to meet you at the Business Council so many years ago, and glad that we've been able to continue our business relationship here.
Of course. Awesome, Robert.